Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 108 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I am your host, Mark Harris, and this time I'm coming to you with my partner, Colton Dodgson. We're
Yes,
both here
sir.
to discuss the Big 12 champion Arizona State Sun Devils. We're about 10 days after the actual game was played, but just
You
wanted to
know,
on
Mark,
some
I have to
games.
say, I thought you forgot the episode title for a second. And I was going to say, or the episode number, and I was going to say that is the first time that you've ever forgotten. Um,
Yeah.
so I almost was no longer impressed by your ability to keep these episodes in sequential order.
I
But
can count. It's one of the few
it
things I can do.
sounds like we have a guest on this, so too.
Yeah, we've got some dogs or making
It's
their
all good.
presence, but that's a theme of this show. I don't think it would be an episode of this show if my neighbor's dogs or Sonny was
Also, it's
stretched a
fitting.
little.
It's symbolic, right? The
Yes,
underdogs are barking.
we will be underdogs against whomever we play in the college football playoff, right?
The dogs are barking.
Yeah. So it's still kind of surreal, but 10 days later, there's been so much that's gone on. Really, if you think about it, like with some of the transfer portal additions, some of the guys who've entered the portal, which so far, for the most part, hasn't really been anyone too impactful. I don't want to be rude, but like other than LaTerrence Welsh, I guess, who stole someone's watch, which is
Yeah,
I said on the last show, I did a like 20-minute just short thoughts last week, and it wasn't known yet. And I was like, oh, that's too bad they had to kick him off the team. And then you find out he stole someone's watch. It's like, okay, well, that's an easy that's an
yeah,
easy
pretty
choice.
fitting. Yeah, pretty,
And it's too
pretty.
bad because like LaTerrence Welsh had one of the biggest plays of the year, that pick in the UCF game,
Yeah,
and that was a game that was a close win, right? So like maybe you win that game otherwise, but no matter what happens, like LaTerrence Welch did have an imprint on this season.
oh for sure. That
But
play was huge. That was one of those
it
games
was
that
huge.
that
And
was
that
one
was
of
a
those that
yeah.
was one of those games in the beginning that felt like it might slip away from them. UCF came out
Yep.
kind of hot, looked like they were gonna out physical ASU a little
I
bit,
mean,
and
they
then
they kind of they did in some ways, honestly. Like that's been the worst ASU defensive game of the year, maybe. Like I
yeah,
because I mean
with
the Texas Tech
Kansas,
game
but
they got off to a bad start, but they kind of clamped down as the game went along. I can't really maybe the Kansas game actually that was pretty bad,
yeah.
but you're right.
No, I was gonna say, man, like that was one of those games that we've talked about the maligned special teams unit all season with the field goal woes and some of the other stuff, but that was one of those games where we had the punt block,
Oh,
the
that was so good.
yeah, the pick six, one of those games where all three phases chipped in. So you're 100% right. He made a pretty big play in one of the biggest plays or one of the biggest games of the season, one that felt like it could have altered where we are now. But
It would
either way, though, you said it. Not a ton of guys who made impacts this season transferring. So that's good, and I think Dillingham spoke to that being representative of the culture that they're building. Right, guys want to
yeah.
be there. Guys want to play there. It is kind of odd though seeing guys um, like I think the tight end going to Florida State. I don't know. Is it
Marquise
Douglas?
Douglas.
Yeah, Douglas.
Yeah.
Seeing Douglas, practicing and other guys who are
It is weird.
transferring practicing, but they're transferring the second the game's over, right? So,
Yeah.
or whatever, whenever the season ends, they'll be out. So it is odd, but that's just a sign of the times. I think we're in a. I mean, it's not too far, or it's not that hard to see that we're in a transitional period into a completely new model in college football. So this is just part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, ASU hasn't even gotten the weirdest experience of it, right? Like the Penn State quarterback thing, the guy Pribula
Yeah,
is like man, that's just tough. Like it's just tough for everyone involved. Um and it puts the kid in a bad situation. So anyway, yeah, like there will probably be probably once the playoff is done, there probably will be some semi-impactful ASU player who leaves.
Yeah,
But one nice thing about getting in the playoff before we kind of talk about what it means on the field and all that, but like it it really limits transfer portal movement out of your team because
yeah,
it's like by the time you're done, most of these spots will be filled. That's why that's why that Pure kid has to transfer. That's why these guys transfer because it's about getting the spot filled, And so um, that's something that ASU and I mean honestly, it's clear that their NIL is more than it was. Right? We don't know exactly how high it is and like how they're really competing and stacking up against like the biggest programs in the country. But it's clear that it seems like it's sufficient and
it's progression.
yeah, and it's rising to the level of the talent it needs to get to. I mean, if they get Deuce Robinson, then then you'll kind of know, like in the same way that when ASU picked up some of the guys they got last year, you knew that like they weren't like just completely broke like they were before. They were now like acceptable. We'll see how that materializes in the portal. I mean, that kicker they got, the guy Jesus
Oh yeah, that post. I'm sure you saw it.
Jesus Gomez. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw it from Brad Denny, the Dominoes thing
Yep.
where
Yep.
Jesus Gomez going 3 for 3 against ASU ultimately led to ASU in the college football playoff. And it's a real full circle moment for him to now be transferring in to save the special teams, so to speak. Which I mean, the guy's a stud. He's as good as it gets for a college kicker. So
Well, and
um,
if you look at his post on Twitter, a lot of Ohio State fans in the comments were like, "Oh, we wanted this guy." So like that's really nice to see. Like, sure, it's a kicker, but um, anytime you're beating out a priority target from Ohio State, that is a good sign.
Yeah, for sure. We saw how big of an asset. I mean, we talk about it's a kicker, right? But we saw how big of an asset kickers can be. There's a lot of programs, struggling with that. So, solidifying special teams in college football can actually be, a pretty significant advantage.
Yeah.
And a weakness becomes a strength, so to speak, here, which is great. But you mentioned Deuce Robinson, man, and outside of the Arizona connection, the Pinnacle High School connection and everything like that, he's become a high profile. I think he's the number one or number two transfer, and that may have changed depending on guys who have entered in the last couple of days. But
This year,
um,
yeah.
yeah, at the time though, when he was on
Still,
campus, he was a number one or a number two rated transfer recruit in the portal. So to even be in the conversation, obviously you have the home ties and stuff, and how much that plays a role, we have no idea. But to even be in that conversation, I think shows how far ASU has progressed, which is great. So
no, for sure. Like I mean, I think he's in the mix with A&M, Florida State. I think his dad has a connection to Florida State, so
okay,
that they definitely feel like the biggest threat to us in this. But this is where, like, yeah, you're right. It feels like we definitely are. I don't know. I always, when we're talking about NIL, because we just don't know what the numbers are, right? So like we can guess and we can infer, but it feels like they're just materially improved on that front.
yes,
And then look, when you have Levitt, like that's if I'm Robinson, like okay, maybe ASU is paying, maybe FSU is paying 300K and ASU is paying 200K or something, but ASU has Levitt, and so it's like, oh, okay, like me and Tyson and Levitt going out there next year, like.
yeah,
And I mean,
yeah,
that's
for
what's good.
sure.
And it's good that we got this guy, Noble Johnson from Clemson, former 4-star. It's not like I mean, we don't know what to expect from him, but it's not like he's like a total game changer, it looks like, but it still looks like he's a good addition. And I mean, Guillory and Stovall are going to be gone too. So like I could
Yeah,
see them adding another receiver as well.
For sure. I do you mean like outside of Robinson or like
Uh,
even if they go get Robinson, probably add
yeah,
another
that's
guy.
true.
No, but I'm asking because either way
Yeah,
makes sense. You definitely need
I
more
could, I
depth at
guess I
that
could see
position.
them adding another if
Yeah, and
Robinson
I'm
also. Oh well,
checking
yeah, no,
on.
they've offered a guy who Levitt played high school with. He was some like kid from like I think it was on like one of the either it was one of the receivers that Levitt played high school with, and
Yeah,
he was from Idaho, or he went to Idaho. So I mean, yeah, I could see them if you get Robinson and this other kid. I think his name's like Hamper or something. I don't have it in front of me, but you get it's clear that they're looking to bolster that position. That's for sure. Because
yeah, and I mean, you said it, dude. Stovall's out the door. Guillory's out the door. Malik McLean, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a sec when
right,
or you may have already talked about the game, but who made one of the, I mean, outside of Guillory's
that was a great
touchdown,
catch. Yeah,
that catch McLean made, who, I mean, he was somebody they were beat reporters were mentioning was kind of making waves in practice leading up to the game too. So it
he
was
was
cool to
talked about as
see.
like the second best receiver,
Yeah,
and
he
you
was
can
making
kind of see
plays.
why in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, so those three guys are all seniors. Obviously, Tyson.
Well, no, I
Um,
think McLean will be back next year.
oh, is he? Okay, he's listed as a
Yeah,
senior, so I
because
wasn't
they
sure.
redshirted him this
You're
year, right?
right. Okay, you're right because he can maintain his red shirt. So he could be a good piece. You got Tyson coming back, the Clemson guy too. So you definitely want to add some depth in that room. We've seen how important that is. We talk about it all year. And depth, I think, leading up, I mean, like I said, early in the season, we were talking about depth being the biggest difference outside of adding some talent. Um, Depth being the biggest difference between this team and last year's team. So I'm sure they'll do just that, and they're obviously hitting the wide receiver position hard and making that a priority in the portal. So that's good. I mean, we'll see. It is the last ride for Guillory and Stovall, though. So we'll see what we get out of them in the quarterfinal game. But I don't know, man. Good things. The portal's been a lot of teams like USC can't be feeling too good right
Oh
now.
my gosh. Yeah.
Obviously U of A. We kind of saw that coming. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
but
for
there's
sure.
some schools getting decimated. ASU isn't one of them. And we're in the mix for some pretty impactful guys. So
Yeah.
life is good for transfer portal season, and we also have a quarter final game to look forward to. So
Exactly. No, it's great, man. And I'm glad we're not playing this weekend. I know that there's like the thought of, oh, they could be rusty, but I like I like sitting back and like, oh, who are we gonna play, and not having to, because I mean, like, this just from a pure talent standpoint, like, it's gonna be hard for ASU to win games in this tournament, right? Like, there's no way around it, you know.
yeah,
And I think in terms of pure just like star talent, which again isn't everything, but it does matter. Like, uh, I think we're definitely ahead of Boise State, and we're ahead of Indiana, and I think we're slightly ahead of SMU. But all these other teams, like, it's all these teams that recruit really highly. It's Oregon, it's Georgia, Texas. Clemson has recruited really well despite them kind of having a down year. Uh, Notre Dame, Penn State, Tennessee, Ohio State. Like, really high level programs that have generally more resources. And so having to play two games, have it like, dude, if we had to go on the road to Penn State this weekend, or I guess it would have ended up being Texas. If I'm playing Texas, I'd rather play them in a neutral site game instead of playing them in Austin.
yeah,
Like,
for sure.
or like if we had to get like all these road look like playing at Ohio State, if it had turned out that way, like, or at Oregon if they had lost, like, no, 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 no. And
Yeah,
obviously the ideal would have been the Fiesta Bowl, and I still think
I man, don't even get me started on how ridiculous the Boise State love is. Like I am so frustrated by the fact that Boise State got the Fiesta Bowl over
it
ASU.
sucks, man.
Like There is no scenario where Boise State is a better team than ASU. Whoever plays Boise State is going to beat Boise State by 2 to 3 touchdowns. I wouldn't say a rent payment, maybe a car payment. I would put a car payment on that.
There
Like,
you go.
Boise State is not a
Responsible
good
gambling from
team.
Colton Dodgson.
They are not a good team. This infatuation with Boise State is the most annoying thing I've had to witness this entire college football season, partially because it cost us the Fiesta Bowl in a college football playoff scenario. It is ridiculous. Ashton Genty, incredible player. Maddox Madsen obviously had a pretty good year too. But there's 51 other guys on the roster, and I don't
There's
think
more than 51. But
Or yeah, you're right.
I
I'm
get
thinking
your point.
NFL. No, you're thinking there's other guys on the roster, and
Yep.
I don't think those other guys are going to stack up with whoever they have next. I don't know the bracket off the top of my head, but whoever it is going to beat them by 2 to 3 touchdowns. That's my take. And then Boise State gets to be gone, and we can talk about how ridiculous it was that they were ranked as the number 3 team in this tournament.
Well, and yeah, like it's tough because I like Boise State, but like the fourth bet, like the Big 12 is just a better league than the Mountain West. Like just because the Big 12 isn't as good as the Big 10 or the SEC doesn't mean we can be like, oh, it's the same as the Mountain West. It's like, no. It's annoying. I will say though, like I feel like there would have been like an added pressure if they were playing at the Fiesta Bowl, right? It's like, oh, like you're playing at home, like people would be, I don't know. I mean,
Well, now you're playing on the road.
oh, for sure, especially if you're
if
playing
Clemson wins,
if you're playing Clemson, yeah, for sure. I mean, and
even if you're playing Texas,
too, yeah, because Texas has a larger fan base and it's just closer, yeah,
half the distance from
exactly.
Arizona.
So like, I will be at the Peach Bowl. Like I'm going, and I'm excited. And I think the one thing that advantage we do have is we know for sure that we're going there. So people like I was able to find some relatively cheap flights just because like at least we could plan right away. But no, we're definitely going to be outnumbered no matter what. Like even if there is a good contingent of ASU fans, we are going to be outnumbered, and the team can expect that too. Like it's not even like like shaming a fan base like thing. No, like it's just realities of some of these fans will be able to drive. Who would you rather play? Like let's take the Peach Bowl aspect out of it. Who would you rather play?
I think I've watching Clemson in the first half of that ACC championship before things got a little interesting. And obviously SMU tied that game, but
that was like a Patrick Mahomes like finish from Clemson.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. But after watching that game, I think Clemson has a little juice. They kind of they had that lull in the second half, found a way to overcome it. They have the pedigree, right? They have a coach who's been there and done all of that. It's Clemson. They have the skill, like they have the talent on their roster, Truthfully, in the hypothetical lines that I've seen, Texas is a double-digit favorite over ASU. I'm pretty sure they're only giving Clemson 3.5 the last time I looked at it.
4.5,
yeah, which is pretty close. I feel like I'm a little more afraid of Clemson than I am of Texas. Like in what I've seen from Texas this year, and it's interesting because they have Quinn Ewers and he's supposed to be this veteran guy, had the accolades coming out, all of that stuff. They get bogged down offensively, right? And we saw that in the Georgia game. They Georgia's backup quarterback came in. It kind of felt like that game was gift wrapped for Texas to run away with it after that backup came in, and Texas just couldn't get out of its own way, right? They got inefficient on offense. They're prone to turnovers. I can see that being a game that plays to ASU's strengths against Texas. And again, those could be famous last words. Texas could come out with their hair on fire and put all of that to rest, right? Maybe that talent disparity shows, but I feel like we've been in a lot of situations where we're like that talent disparity should show, right? It should have showed. It should have shown against Kansas State. It should have shown against Iowa State.
I just, dude, Texas has way, 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 way more
Oh
talent
no,
than.
but I completely agree. But the point I'm trying to make, I'm not saying Texas is
Okay.
on the same level of an Iowa State or a
Yeah.
Kansas State. But what I'm saying is sometimes Texas doesn't play like they are the more talented roster.
That is 100% true.
So
Yeah.
that's the point I'm trying to make is sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot, right?
Yep.
And that's the type of stuff that ASU has taken advantage of this year.
And
Getting out
hasn't
to
really
hot
done that
starts.
much. That much.
Right. And getting out to hot starts and
Yep.
working
Yep.
the time of possession. Sometimes the decision making backfires a little bit, but we've also seen you live by it, you die by it, right? That
Yeah, I mean
60-yard 4th-and-1 call in the Big 12 championship shifted that whole thing. So,
yeah, exactly.
I again, I could eat these words in 2 weeks if Texas beats Clemson, but I don't think 11 and a half, if that spread is 11 and a half points, I am taking that. I think that is a little disrespectful to what ASU has proven, and I think that they can absolutely cover that. I don't think they win. I think the absolute best case scenario for ASU in this playoffs, and I think we'd sign up for it any day of the week, is a rematch against Dan Lanning in Oregon. I think that's the
Yep.
absolute ceiling. There's no way they're getting through Oregon, which is fine. You get to the college football semifinals on house money,
Dude,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
that's fine. Again, they would have to play the game of their lives to get through a Texas. I think there's a little more margin for error with Clemson, but I do think Clemson, again, looking at that first half, what I saw from them more in the ACC championship versus what I saw from Texas in the SEC championship, Clemson scares me, Texas or Clemson. I said it right. Clemson scares me a little more than Texas does.
Okay.
So that's kind of my long-winded
So,
response.
yeah. So you're in the Clemson camp just because you feel like they have a little bit more juice right now, and Texas's offense can just get bogged down, like you said.
Right. They have to muddy up the game a little bit. And I think
Right.
if you let ASU hang around, that's kind of where ASU thrives.
That is true. That is very true.
And dominating that time of possession and just letting Skattebo work that clock,
Yeah.
I think that could be a game script that favors ASU, and that's a game script that's a little more likely against the Texas than I think it is against the Clemson.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing we both agree on is Klubnik is better than Ewers.
Yes.
Right now. I don't think Klubnik is like awesome, but I think he's definitely better. Like he's definitely improved.
Right. They're moving in opposite directions.
Yes, 100%. But yeah, like
Yeah.
Ewers probably entered the year playing better than Klubnik, honestly. But as the season has gone along, Klubnik's definitely gotten better. With that said, I still am more. I would rather play Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they went 9-3 this year, and they could have they almost lost to Pitt. This is not like they almost lost to SMU, and probably should have lost to SMU. Honestly, SMU came back storming in the second half. But first of all, we have to be so thankful that Clemson did win. Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's so dumb that game, that's the game that forced us into the 4th spot. But anyway, we've made our thoughts known on that.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is, I think they're if we play Texas, I'm going clear-eyed into the game, knowing that there is a real chance that we get blown out.
Yeah.
That is a real possibility. I think it's like 30%, but I mean, I do think we can beat Texas. I don't think it would take a lot. We'd have to win the turnover battle, which I think is possible based on, kind of what Texas has shown this year.
Yeah.
But they're going to be able to bottle up Skattebo more than most teams. Their front seven is really good. Ultimately, we still don't have Tyson. I know it played out well against Iowa State, but Texas is going to be it's just a different animal. And so I think we could win that game, but it would have to be, I think it would have to be like a low scoring game. Like we would have to win like 24-21 or something. Like I think it's
Yeah,
possible, but it's like it's going to take a lot, and I think there's only a few ways to get there, you know.
100%.
And
I
so,
completely agree, and I want to be
yeah,
clear. I don't think we would beat Texas in a game
no, it's
against
definitely unlikely.
Texas.
It's definitely
Right, in a
unlikely.
game against Texas, I'm saying if if things break perfectly our way, right? If
See, I
Quinn
don't agree.
Ewers,
So I don't think things need to break perfectly. Like I don't think we need to play like in. I think we can win this game, and like I don't think we have to play at our absolute 100% best to win this game. I mean, like we can't play like a
I
B.
think I just mean like different scenarios have to break our way. Like Ewers
Yeah,
has to
that's
come
fair.
out and turn the ball over, right?
Yes, no,
Skattebo
it
has to
would.
be able to pick up, third and threes, fourth and ones.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
those things have to go
and
our way.
drive.
The little things have to go. So maybe I misspoke when I said it has to be like an absolute perfect game,
Yeah,
and Levitt has to be 18 of 20 in the first time. Like it's not like that. I just mean the little things, the
yes.
50-50 things,
The things that
right?
ASU's done really well this year for the most part.
100%. Those things, ASU has to come out and not only win that, but win it like pretty significantly,
Yeah,
right? They
that's
have
fair.
to be extremely efficient on third and fourth down. They have to win that turnover battle convincingly. I think
Yeah,
they would have to keep baiting Texas into those mistakes. But I also think it's hard because you don't get that sort of gauge to see where a team like ASU talent wise stacks up against a team like Texas, right? Like when is the time we have gotten to gauge like what that actually looks like when it manifests on a football field,
well,
right?
yeah, the last time would have been last year, which is irrelevant, right? Like
Exactly.
when
Like
they played
throw that out. This is
Yeah, so
you know what I'm saying?
this
Completely
year it's
different
like
team.
maybe I don't even know. Yeah, that's the thing that complicates it, right? Is
But
like
that's the great unknown is we can talk
yeah,
about like the tendencies, right? Ewers can turn the ball over. Texas can get bogged down, rely on their defense quite a bit, right?
yep,
And we can talk about the things ASU does well. But until these two teams are on the field and you see these
yeah.
guys playing football, it is so hard to gauge what the product is going to look like because hey, maybe the talent gap isn't as wide as everybody thinks it
Oh, I
is.
agree with
Right?
that.
Like
I do agree with that.
yeah, like
Um,
maybe ASU's players show up and they show that they belong a
yeah.
little bit,
No,
right?
I
And
I
it's not
100% agree with that. Like especially
yeah,
to the ASU enter like it closed out the year with every single their each of their last 4 games they were up 21 nothing or better at one point in the game. So like and you look at the first team all Big 12, right? It was I think I don't remember if Tyson made first team or not. I'm pretty sure Tyson made first team, but Tyson Skattebo, Lee Fautanu, and Xavier Alford, and then second team, like they were well represented on second team and honorable mention, and like the individual talents are being recognized.
right.
And I do think it helps that like I think our offensive line is way more talented than people think. In the Big 12 game, in the Big 12 championship game, they mentioned Max Ianachor, a right
Mhm.
tackle, as a potential NFL guy. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I hadn't really thought about that, but it makes sense. Like he's been a really good player this year. And so Lee Fautanu could be an NFL. Like I think it's likely that he'll get drafted this year at center. Dan
Yeah.
Coleman's coming back, but it would be like I think that he'll eventually play in the NFL. So like that's 3 NFL players. Like I'm not like for sure, but like I
Guys
think
who very well could. Guys
yeah,
with the
3
talent.
very well could be in the NFL players, and then
And
Kyle
they're all
Slotzman.
seasoned, man. Like they're all
Yeah,
seasoned. They're
and dude,
it's not
Levitt's pocket presence will give them some mulligans too. Like
yeah.
he's gonna avoid a few sacks, and whomever they play, whether it's Clemson or Texas, and both have like really good defensive lines, good linebackers. I'm sure like they'll get to Levitt a few times. It's not like he'll get away from everything, but like he will make a few plays, whether it's on the ground or whether it's just extending plays or whether it's just like a sack that could have or escaping a sack for just an incomplete pass, But there will be a few plays where it's like, oh, like this Levitt kid, as we've seen this whole year, right? Like,
Yeah, it's not news to us. Like
no,
we've seen it happen, and I think national media is catching up maybe a
they
little
had
bit.
to in the Iowa State game. I mean, he was
Yeah,
awesome with his legs and
maybe the first time any of these people have seen him, but national media is catching up a little bit. But we've seen it, man. Like he's a talented player,
yeah,
and you talked about the front seven in the trenches on both sides. I like if that we're mentioning the talent disparity, but if ASU proves that they can hang around with Texas's front seven,
yeah.
and I'm talking a lot about Texas. They're an 11-point favorite for the
We
sake of
should
this
know. I
discussion.
mean, we have to assume that Texas is going to win. Like,
Yeah, for the sake of this
yeah.
discussion,
No,
I'm
I
just
mean,
going to operate as if Texas wins this game.
I think that's very fair given how
Yeah.
Clemson played this year. Like,
So you mentioned all of the talent on this offensive line, the potential NFL talent, right?
mhm.
And the seasoned, the veteran leadership on this offensive line, and that's the motor that makes ASU go, right? If they can't get Skattebo going, they can't get into their play action stuff. They can't roll Sam
Yep.
Levitt out. It's the motor that makes it go. So I think early on in a game against Texas, if ASU's offensive line is hanging with the skill set that you see on a Texas defensive line, things could get interesting. But
Yeah.
again, it all comes down to that talent gap. All we can do is talk about hypotheticals right now because
Yep.
we haven't seen ASU play somebody of this caliber. But if that gap isn't as steep as we perceive it to be, again, I think the ceiling for this team, the absolute perfect scenario, is a loss to Oregon. So if we're
No,
talking about
we're very clear eyed about this. Like we
yes,
aren't. I've heard some. This is a little tangent, but I heard, and I get that we're a fan podcast, but I just don't like looking at sports through these completely unrealistic lens because then you just get crushed even more. And
yeah,
like
you have to
like
be
I think if you're an
realistic.
Oregon fan, I think if you're an Ohio State fan, I think if you're a Texas fan, heck, a Georgia fan, maybe Notre Dame you could throw in there. Like I think you can go into this being like we can win it all.
Yeah,
I think if you're an
100%.
ASU fan, Boise State fan, Indiana fan, Clemson, SMU, Tennessee, Tennessee probably falls in this well. You're just like, let's just win a game, maybe two,
Yeah,
and let's just see how it goes. And it's also like this is the first time like Penn State's ever made a playoff. Tennessee, obviously ASU, Boise State, Indiana, SMU. Like if you're a fan of those teams, like you at least just want to win a game, you
yeah.
know. And so like,
College
but we
football
need
isn't
to
really
stop being like,
built.
oh, could ASU win a national championship? It's like they have to
No.
win 3 games. They have to win 3 games against like the blue chip teams.
Yeah.
3 games in a row. Like that's just if you ask them that like I saw someone on it was my favorite my least favorite announcer, Tim Brando. I forget the channel. It's Sports 360 I gotta look it up. But it's like it's a college football channel. It's like 360 Sports, and it was like national title contenders, and it was ASU, and I'm like, all that does is just like set us up for failure. Let's just try to go as far as we can go, and that includes like winning a game. Like I don't think it's
Right.
crazy for us to win this game. And if somehow like Tennessee makes if ASU wins this playoff game and it's Tennessee that they play in the semifinals, I would go into that game leaning like, okay, we have a better shot to beat Tennessee than Oregon or Ohio State, you know.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but the reason I say that is because like Tennessee is the worst team, so it's unlikely that they're going to be able to win twice to get there anyway, right? So like it all just this isn't March Madness, right? Like
I was just gonna say, I don't. College football is not built for Cinderellas.
yeah, it's built for yeah,
there aren't Cinderellas in this tournament. As cool as it is that it is now expanded to 12 teams and teams like ASU and the significantly more talented Boise State can be in this tournament is great, and you have a puncher's chance, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
you
not
do.
like you're inherently eliminated, but I guess it is that way in the basketball tournament too, where there's a cap on what a Cinderella can accomplish, but that cap is like a really hard cap in college football
It's yeah.
because of that talent gap and that talent disparity. It you just have to be realistic. What ASU has done this year is already. I think I saw somewhere that ASU winning the Big 12 was the fifth biggest
Yes, I saw that
upset
too.
in
I
in
I
sports
think
history.
that's it's not. I'm sorry. Like just
I think it's just people being unaware of what ASU had. But
it's just a
in any
bad
case,
line.
yeah,
It
and
is a bad line. Clear like one of the reasons why ASU has been successful this year, and a lot of these guys are not getting talked about. It's like the other transfers that have filled out this starting unit. Like no people outside of like ASU fans are talking about, oh, it's a good thing we got Ghost Rouser, but like no
yeah,
one else is like, oh, Miles Rouser. He's like they aren't talking about him like they're Levitt or Skattebo or Cyrus Fiaseu or Jordan Crook or Keyshawn Elliott or some of the guys on the like Zach Swanson on the defensive line,
Shamari
Dorvad Smith,
Simmons,
like Jeff Clark, like all these guys, like Josh Atkins at left tackle, like all these guys that kind of fill in the gaps that aren't stars, but like no, there's no possible way for a bookmaker to be like, oh yeah, these two guys from New Mexico State transferring up on the defense are going to play.
yeah,
They're going to be huge reasons why ASU is way better than this team than people expect, or like all this stuff. So like I don't blame the bookmaker for getting it wrong, but they just got it wrong. They just didn't know how much talent was actually on this team, and like
right,
people
and
didn't
fell
know how
victim to the
much
landscape too.
yeah, people, and yeah, exactly. And the Big 12 is just like again, we talk about like ASU not having played a team at the level of Texas, like that's part of it too. And Skattebo, like
Yeah,
Skattebo is just a ridiculous player that changes games just because like the Mississippi State game. They don't win that game without Skattebo. Like Levitt did not. That was his worst game of the year.
yeah,
Like he had a whole half where he just couldn't complete passes essentially, and like they were able to win that game because Levitt or Skattebo was just so good that he just carried them and like uh,
dominant.
exactly. I mean like, that game didn't play into the Big 12 championship race, but you get the point. Like so I like it's interesting that they made that list, but I just don't think any Big 12 champion that was an underdog entering the year can really, at least at this point in the Big 12, like maybe if a team could be ASU. I mean, ASU seems like very well positioned to be a team that like actually grabs a hold of the league in the near
Yeah,
future. But
it feels sustainable. It really does. And
yeah, it does. It does. I mean,
looking at like what this university under the new leadership with Graham Rossini, who
yeah,
I remember when we were talking about the athletic director hire and we were like, why did it take this long and all these things? Whatever
it's
we
worth
were
it.
skeptical
Yeah,
about, like they hit an absolute home run with this athletic director. He is a star, just like our
grinder.
football coach is a star.
Yeah,
So this program is in
he's a
such good
grinder.
hands.
And they
Yeah,
both like it, people. Everyone talks about Dillingham. Oh, he loves ASU and all this, and like it's obvious, it's great, it's obvious. But the fact that Grassini loves ASU,
mm-hmm.
like you always see him in like a new ASU jacket. Like he is clearly like a diehard fan.
Right.
Like more than maybe you and I even, and like that's not the case for like all these athletic directors. I can't even blame them. Like of all the things to be upset about Ray Anderson, like you can't really be like, oh, he wasn't like a hardcore ASU fan because that's like not even a realistic expectation for an athletic director, right? Like,
For sure. It's
and
such a
so, but it's
business. Like
yeah, exactly,
to be
exactly,
able to land a guy who is a diehard fan and also great at his job
yeah,
is lightning in a bottle. It's the same thing with Dillingham, man. To have a guy like him who's as passionate and not only that, as skilled of a coach and an offensive mind that he is, be a
yep,
product of Arizona, be a Chaparral High School graduate,
that's right,
and be an alumni of the university. Like They just with these two guys, they are set up to run the Big 12. Like they really are. I don't know how they can't be in that conversation after this year.
With Levitt coming back too.
100%. And somebody on a Heisman watch list, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
you get Tyson coming back healthy.
It's not like overhyping either. Like he should be on watch lists. Like
no, 100%.
Yeah.
He's been incredible. And
I do want to touch on something you said earlier, like when you were talking about like, oh, we'll see how ASU responds to the, Texas talent or Clemson talent on their in the trenches. Whether it's Texas or Clemson, they're gonna have to like respond to the talent of Skattebo and Levitt. And what I mean by that is like you can watch film and be like, oh, this is how we got to take down Skattebo. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like, deal with that when he's actually
now
running.
Go do it. Right.
And maybe you take him down, but you take him down 2 or 3 yards after, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 9.
There is something to be said about that, right? Like sort of the element of surprise a little bit. Like you could have a team like a Texas or, in Oregon, maybe not in Oregon because of Dillingham and, Lanning, but a team like a Texas who has zero familiarity with ASU or anything ASU has done, maybe come out and take them a little lightly. Feel like, hey, maybe if we do this and this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's human nature. You're dealing with 18 to 23-year-olds. Like I've played sports. I've played against teams that didn't have the talent of the team that I was on, right? Like you sometimes inherently take those teams a little more lightly. And that's something, who knows? That's on coaching. Maybe Sark is emphasizing that. But and I like how we're talking like Texas has already beat Clemson. But in any case,
Texas is just a stand-in. Like all of these thoughts apply to Clemson as well.
Exactly.
I would be like, if we beat Clemson, I don't think it would be because Clemson overlooked us.
No, I think there is a little more of a level playing field with Clemson.
Yeah. Well, and also I just think whatever you think of Dabo, and I think Dabo's a clown in many respects, honestly, but I do think he would have his team equally prepared for every game that they play.
Sark, I don't think that overlook thing applies much to Clemson.
No.
I think Texas and the whole, high and mighty SEC thing, I would not be shocked if an SEC school overlooked a Big 12 school. Like that seems a little more realistic. But again, it's that human nature thing. You never know what you're going to get with college football teams. So, but that's a great point, man. Like, you can go out, the point that you made, you can go out, you can watch tape on Skattebo. You can come up with a strategy for countering what ASU was going to do with him, but now go do it. Like, who has been able to do it, right? Maybe Kansas State to an extent, but very few teams.
After he was injured too.
Right. Very few teams have been able to do it. So, I mean, we'll see.
Well,
but
the kind of the same theory applies to Levitt. Not in the air, not quite as much, but like on the ground, like he's been able to just get guys this year. He's had that extra little step in all these games, and I think that can definitely apply to whomever they play. And
definitely,
it basically my point is, how like I don't know what Lamar Jackson's record is against the NFC, but it's crazy, right? I think he's lost like 1 or 2 times to NFC teams because they don't.
He lost the Eagles this year, so
that's right. Okay, so it's twice, yeah, because it was once until they lost to the Eagles this year. And the point is, like, these teams, like, you can watch Lamar Jackson on tape, but he's still so elusive. Like, it's still an impossible task unless you've played him before and you're a little bit more familiar with it. Obviously, Cam Skattebo and Sam Levitt are not the level of Lamar Jackson, but in terms of like tackling Skattebo, like, it's going to be really difficult. Like, even like he's not going to have the same type of game he did against Iowa State. Like,
no, but I don't think you need him to.
No,
I think this is a game. Yeah. This is a game that script wise might end up being like the muddy, bring Texas down, like fight, that sort of thing. Like, not really an air it out kind of.
It would be a Brian Ward game. And a Marcus Arroyo with like 3 or 4 really timely play calls. game.
100%.
And
That's
those two
exactly what
guys,
I was. That's
yeah.
exactly what I was trying to say.
Well,
You
there
hit
you
the nail
go.
on the
Yeah,
head. And the you with your timely play calling thing, you couldn't have been more accurate. But timely play calling on third and fourth downs, right?
yep.
Like you have to maintain drives and you have to dominate the time of possession. And I think if they do that, man, like there's going to be a lot of surprised people in terms of how close this game could be.
For sure. No, for sure. I mean, it's fun. And you mentioned like ASU's not like built to win the national title, and I agree. And we explained why. But college football is like the years of the 14 playoff with it, when it felt like there were only 5 teams that could make the playoff and only like 2 or 2.5 that could actually win it all because Bama just had so much talent. Georgia had so much talent. Ohio State to a degree as well. Since the transfer portal is open, since NIL has become a bigger part of the sport, and now with the 12-team playoff, like I think we're going to see less and less just dominant like backups or elite players type of teams. And
Right.
I think Oregon might actually be one of maybe Oregon, and you can throw in Georgia just because of their insane recruiting operation. And I think actually Texas could apply to this as well. And there's a chance that we could be catching Texas in like the right year to catch them because of Quinn Ewers just being uneven, right?
Right.
Like if you just switched, dude, like if you put Sam Levitt on Texas, I mean, I guess the thing is that like Levitt's young, so like maybe he wouldn't be ready to like win it all. But like if you put Dylan Gabriel in Texas, like I think
Shit,
they
man.
would
Ewers has been benched this year. Like
yeah, no,
Ewers got benched
he
against
is.
Georgia, I think it
I'd
was.
argue Rocco Becht is better than Ewers. I'd argue Retzlaff. I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy here, but like
Yeah. Whoa,
I think
Mark.
I think we have played quarterbacks this year that are better than Ewers,
Yeah.
or at least equal. And I mean, heck, like the Iowa State passing game, Higgins had a good day against us, but like that passing game, it might be better than either Clemson or Texas. Now, not a better overall offense. I'm not saying that, but like it is interesting that like yeah, like they had a few plays on us, but it wasn't crazy, and so it's I'm just so glad we're in this position. Like
Yeah.
I
This
was
is
thinking
this
about this,
is
like the fact that we're in this and we have this time to just like talk about it. We have 2 more weeks until the game. Like we can really soak it in. There's a chance that Clemson Texas game is a physical battle too, which
Mhm.
could help us out. They still get like 8 days in between, so I don't know how much it would matter, but
Yeah.
a little bit.
But
And
they
then
still have to play one more, man. And there's
exactly,
always the other
yeah.
side to that coin. Like, is there something to be said about too much time off? Whatever. But you got to have faith in Dillingham's ability to prepare them and all of
Yeah.
those things. But you're right. I mean, it is a huge benefit to get to sit back and watch two teams battle it out for the right to play you. Like that's crazy.
Well, and
Texas has to win to play ASU.
yeah,
Can you
that is
believe
true.
that?
That is when you put it that way, that's yeah.
That's
That
just absurd.
it's one of the top 5 like most valuable brands in college sports. And then Clemson, who has 2 national championships in the last 10 years, 2 more national championship game appearances. So it's like 2 just really high level teams that you'll play. And it's good to go into this game where it's like, yeah, I mean, ASU definitely could get blown out. Like we are clear eyed about that.
Yeah, it's a scenario.
Texas more likely than Clemson. But I mean, there's a good chance this game is competitive entering the fourth quarter. And
Yeah,
that's such a great place to be. And you mentioned the bye, like they're probably going to change the bye system in the next few years. Like
yeah. Like conference champs
if
won't get an
if
auto bid.
ASU had this exact same season 3 years from now and they go 10-2 and win the Big 12 championship, they would still be in the playoff. But the idea that they would just 100% be locked into a bye is, like in terms of just pure talent, like ASU is not the 4th best team in this field. So I understand the
No,
argument. But that's why it was so important to win the Big 12 this year. Like,
Yeah.
because you get the bye. Like, maybe the system's flawed, but you get the bye no matter what. I mean, not since Clemson won, I guess not no matter what, but you get the bye, and like you get the conference championship. Like, I don't think people are kind of soaking it in enough that like winning a conference championship that is not the WAC is a huge, huge deal for ASU football, and being the outright winner too, because I think they won one in the Erickson era where they like split it, but they also
Especially in a 16-team conference.
yes, and
Like,
just to have it locked in, like you are the Big 12 conference champions. There's nothing that anyone can say. You know, it's done. The game happened. ASU had, I mean, that third quarter was just heaven for a football fan. Like,
yeah.
was,
Dude, just a turnover fest.
oh my
And then
god,
capitalizing on them. Like,
it
it wasn't like turnover and then punt. It was turnover, touchdown, turnover,
yep.
touchdown. It was just beautiful.
It was awesome, and like I was nervous. I was nervous entering that game. I was nervous like during the game. I was nervous even in that third quarter. I was like, okay, like let's really make sure they can't come back, and they just kept scoring. It was just like it. The only comparison I have is when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and the difference is like that was 3 in a row where the Seahawks, it was like the Malcolm Smith pick, and then you have halftime, and then the Harvin return, and then you add on to it. But it was just like, wow, we're just like completely dominating, and we were just stacking touchdowns so quickly. I mean, the fact that Jeff Sims got 2 series in this game.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Even, like you can't even adjust in that scenario. Like you blink and you're down 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like it was just like foot on their neck. There's no coming back.
And when I saw the pick by Becht where it like bounced off the guy's helmet, I was like, okay, like this is our day. You know,
Yeah.
like they cannot tackle Skattebo. I mean, some of those runs were
man. You're talking Seahawks, those Marshawn Lynch.
They were
levels.
yes.
Those
this is why this is why the Marshawn Lynch comparisons
Boast Skattebo. No. I was trying to work it out. It didn't really work. Skattebo.
Got a touchdown. No, he's a beast, man. Like it's so fun watching him, and I'm so happy that like all of these like Skattebo gets remembered as like this legend at ASU. Like,
oh yeah,
because he's like, oh, you were the clear best guy on the Big 12 championship team.
Finished 5th in Heisman voting, man.
5th in Heisman votes, could have easily been 4th, and just put this program back on the map. Took this program out of the mud, and just has such an entertaining style of play too. That's really what like so much about sports is just like how you feel when you watch a player, and like just watching Skattebo play, and like even last year to a degree, but especially this year, it's just like this dude is off. Like he cannot get taken down by one guy. He's always going forward. When he has these long runs, he's just like absorbing these massive hits and just bounces off. And like, he has a flair. He contributes in the passing game too. I mean, 500 receiving yards, 1,500 rushing yards, 500 receiving yards. Christian McCaffrey-esque. It's just so awesome. And there's no like the ASU player. Like we've had some awesome ASU players, but like
I was gonna say, like recency bias aside, and do your best to leave recency bias out of it. If you were gonna survey, like. I don't know how I want to word this question because it's either your opinion or the opinion of like the majority. But let's just go with you.
Yeah, because we can't.
I think the majority,
the opinion of the majority, is
overwhelmingly
by,
recency bias. I think if you
yeah.
polled 1,000 people, an overwhelming majority would probably say Skattebo is their favorite Sun Devil ever. Maybe like he has ascended to that tier.
Favorites.
Yeah, he has ascended to that tier for so many people, and I guess it depends on how long you've been watching this team and and some of the teams that you got to see play. And there's obviously
The 70s have
there's some all-time
yeah.
greats, but like Skattebo after what he did this season, and I don't think it's going to fully resonate until the run is over and then maybe even some time after that
Yeah, I
to
agree.
wrap your mind around what this team accomplished and accomplished so quickly. But I feel like he's got to be a top 5 player ever.
Oh, no, he's on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, of
Undoubtedly.
ASU
Like,
football. Like after what he did this season and what the team accomplished, and the fact that he was the catalyst of that,
and he has the stats to back it up. Like, and he has the
100%.
Heisman vote. Like, he has
I
the
think he's the best running back.
GNC is really good, but I can
No.
I
I mean for
in
in
ASU.
ASU history, or at
Yeah,
least the best season. I mean,
I
you can
think the
look at
best.
like
I
rushing
think
yards and
definitely the
stuff,
best
but
season. There have been guys with more rushing yards. Woody Green, he tied the touchdown with him, so he one more touchdown and he breaks the ASU single season touchdown record. I would say that he probably is the best ASU running back. He's definitely the most the flair that he plays with, man.
yeah,
Like
there's so many different
the
elements.
fact
Like
that he
if you
signed
went off of the
the
football thing,
ball in the BYU game, like
yeah,
it's just it's so much memorable stuff. And he's had a few games where it's been like the Mississippi State game. He just pretty much won that game for them.
right.
There's been
And
a
I
few
mean,
other
if you took all of that out of it, and he was just a mundane guy, nothing about his personality stood out, and
right.
all he had was the numbers, you could still make an argument he is
Oh, absolutely.
probably. But like once you add all of that other stuff in and add what
Yeah.
he brought to this team,
Yeah.
like man, I don't. Somebody's gonna throw out some guy from '78 or something like
No,
that, but like
we are not being hyperbolic, man. We
I
are not.
don't think
Like,
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say he might be the best running back in ASU history.
no, it's not at all. And what I mentioned in like the terms of that there's winning that comes along with it too, and that's awesome because like I think Terrell Suggs is also on the Mount Rushmore just
Oh, for sure.
just because of how good he was. He had like 24 sacks in the season. It's just insane. But that was for like an 8-win team. And so it's like it's awesome. Like he's still on that level, but
And I think obviously the
it's just
success
about
he had at the
individual
next
accomplishment.
level,
That
right?
adds to
The
it for
success he
sure.
had at the next level
That adds to it.
bolsters that too.
Yeah. But
Um,
like with
I mean,
Skattebo, it's
obviously,
like
yeah,
he's the main reason they won the Big 12. And it's also really cool. And then this is going to sound super sentimental and kind of like corny, but it's really cool that he loves being a Sun Devil. It's really cool, especially after the last few years when even the last off season where like guys just hit the portal. It's like, okay, like, yeah, it's good to be here, but I'm out. Like,
yeah,
and I know Skattebo portaled here, but like, even in his 2 years, like, it's really cool that he's like, I love being a Sun Devil. Like, I'm always gonna, this is my school. This is what I represent. And it's like, it's refreshing. And it's just like, it's so nice after the last few years where you just had all these talented guys leave. And I don't even really like, most of them, I don't really blame their decision because of the circumstances, but some of them, like, I don't know, like it's like Elijah Badger could have been a guy like this for ASU, and
yeah.
I'm sure the money was better at Florida, and so like again, like it's not like Elijah Badger has like some guaranteed like great NFL career, so it's a tough like way to balance it, but. It would be odd, like if it like he would be definitely going to the NFL still if he had stayed at ASU. Like there's no doubt in my mind, like because he has a different kind of skill set than Tyson as a receiver.
Yeah, I think
like it is nice that like you have a guy like Skattebo who just really like puts the program, just really represents it well. And I don't mean to bring up Badger as like in a negative.
No, he's just an example of like you mentioned it. There was kind of an exodus out of ASU. There was an exodus out of ASU for good reason, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, I also bring up him because like I don't want to bring up all the guys who left in the Herm ending because like I do not blame them for leaving at all. Like it made perfect sense. You
just mean after year one of Dillingham.
Yeah, I do like the guys after year one of Dillingham, like None of them went to like awful programs either. That does kind of complicate it. Like Jordan Clark's at Notre Dame right now, so like you can't
Yeah,
really say he made Jordan Conyers, like Texas Tech went 8-4. He's from that area. I'm sure they gave him more money. So you just kind of go through every single one. Like BJ Green, that was kind of a weird one. I don't really know exactly what prompted him to leave, but again, a lot of these guys were also from the Herm era too. So like
yeah,
it is like a unique scenario, but it's just like it's nice that Skattebo is just really loves ASU, and it's great. It's just such a great success story too, because now you can be like, hey, like this guy came to ASU, he got plenty of NIL money, he got the community behind him, had his own burrito, he's on those like lifted truck
dude,
commercials.
the lifted truck. I was just about to say that. I just
Oh
sent
my
that
god,
video to Cole and Matt because they're in California and they haven't seen it.
yeah,
That is like, oh, that commercial kills me every time.
dude,
Him
it's
doing
so
the Hardo arms crossed after he's whipping the truck around the lake. Like,
yeah, dude.
oh man, I love those
It's
commercials.
it's so perfect for a lifted trucks commercial,
Yeah,
right? Like,
dude, he is a little lifted truck. Like
yeah,
that, he
yeah.
is. If a lifted truck was a person, it would be Cam Skattebo.
No, dude, he is so fun to watch, man.
No,
Like,
I know, and you mentioned all of those things, and I think it's not sentimental. I think what you're trying to say is like the decision that he made could ultimately be a foundational.
yeah,
You mentioned a success story, but a foundational example, right?
yep,
Like the fact that he stayed and stuck that out and drove his lifted truck with the team in the back to the Big 12 championship,
yeah,
like it's foundational because it's something Dillingham can point to. It's something that the
yep,
fact that Tyson and Skattebo, well, Skattebo's a senior, but after last year he didn't transfer. The fact that Tyson and Levitt are both seemingly committed, right? Like it seems like the days of the Exodus, right? And all the guys that we talked about, and we talked about the crossover with eras and different motivations and guys did what was best for them and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I don't think and we're seeing some guys leave, but I don't think the days of losing an Elijah Badger and losing a BJ Green, I don't, and every year is different, but it seems
yeah.
like there is an expectation now or at least a culture now that is enticing for people.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Like,
Right.
there
It,
will be
it,
high
it makes
profile
them
guys.
consider.
Yeah.
It makes their decision more difficult.
Yes, yes,
Right.
100%.
And
No,
it
because
wasn't that difficult in the past.
no, that's true, and that's why I don't. That's why I don't want to be too hard on those guys because, like, ultimately they didn't know what this season would be like.
Right.
But
100%.
um, yeah, I mean, there will be high profile guys that leave ASU in the future. Like, that's just
Absolutely.
how it's.
There's too
It's
many
happening at
variables.
Alabama. It's happening at freaking Alabama. Like happening
Right.
at
But
Penn State.
also, I think there's a lot to be said about Dillingham's ability to work the portal and
Yes.
bring guys in to replace those losses.
Yep. No,
Right.
I
Like
saw.
that's
I was just looking at Chris Cartman's Twitter feed this show, and like they have a defensive end from Oregon, they have a guy from Washington State coming in. So like, and we've had some decent guys from Wazoo transfer up here, so or to ASU, and so yeah, it's. I mean, like it would be very surprising, like everything that you've kind of not you specifically, but like that's been out there about like Sam Levitt. Like it would be pretty unlikely that he leaves right now, right? And
yeah, I don't
if you
think
have
that's
it, like,
one.
why would you leave? Like that's the other thing. Like the only possible reason could be money, but ASU is clearly in a better position money wise now,
Yeah.
and it's like okay, like sure you could probably get more money somewhere else. Like that's true, but you're leaving a coach that you clearly have such a good bond with. You're leaving two coaches, right? With Arroyo as well. And like if you're Levy, like I'm just like, how about I just stay here, just get better in this system? And like there's a chance, like because you have to be 3 years out of high school to enter the NFL draft, correct?
Yeah. So
Yes.
next
So
year,
he
if
redshirted.
he
Yeah, there's a chance he could be in the NFL. He could be in the 2026 NFL draft, and like I know that's not crazy to say. And so I don't even think that's his plan. Like I could see him staying another year, but the point being,
especially now with, I mean, the state
yeah,
of the NFL and all the stuff we're hearing about even Ewers. We mentioned Ewers. We're seeing a lot about him
Yeah.
wanting to forego it for one more season because so many talent evaluators are talking about these quarterbacks aren't ready yet.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's influenced a lot of quarterback decisions, just the stuff that we've seen, right? With Ewers and then the Penn State guy too. I think he was eligible and he decided to go back. Like in years past, when you're eligible, you're going.
You're gone. Yeah, that's true.
It was almost like staying too long hurt your prospects. And now I think that's starting to shift a little bit. So you're 100% right. That could shift into his decision as well. And I mean, how conducive is it to your development to leave a system? And I would say, like, just I guess based off vibes, we're not connected, we don't know. But based on vibes, it feels like it's like a 95% chance, and that 5% is just like the most unforeseen,
Yeah, totally.
scenario comes to fruition. But I don't see Levitt leaving. And based on everything I've seen from Tyson, the way he was acting on the sideline, the way he communicates he was a third-team All-American this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why?
No, I don't.
Why would
Yeah,
you
I think
leave the
Tyson
situation?
is like slightly more of a flight risk, but not real. Like, I just like why like they know, like the thing is, like, you have guys coming back, like they're going to be ASU will be a good team next year.
Yes.
And like maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be a good team and they lose a few ugly games. They finish 8-4, and it's like a little bit disappointing. Like
But think of where our
they will be a good team.
expectations were. You know what I mean?
Yes,
To talk
exactly.
about you kind of had a disappointing tone there, and I completely agree. It almost
Right.
feels like an 8-4 encore to what we've seen this year would be disappointing. Like,
Right. It kind of would be, but it would also be.
yeah,
It's also good to be in a spot where you're like. I
it's
guess
a
we were
testament to the
disappointed.
state of the program,
Yeah,
right?
I
Like,
guess we were disappointed 8-4 in 2021, but the difference is that team
had
didn't have a 10
expectations,
win. That team didn't have a 10-win season in the bank like this
right?
one does. So like,
Right. Once you set the expectation, it's on you to live up to it. Like,
yeah,
it's not on us. Maybe those expectations were unfair for a team like that who hadn't done it before. Now you've done it before, right?
yeah,
And you have guys who can step up and fill some of the voids. Skattebo, he is going to be an extremely difficult guy to replace. You probably can't replace a guy like that.
no,
But there are some very skilled backs on this roster
dude, yeah,
who
Tyson
can
Brown,
fill
Jason
that void.
Brown,
Yeah,
Malik
can fill
Brown,
that
like
void.
those guys those guys all have like different kind of skill sets too. Like, so it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be, and it's there's a part of me that like. It's like we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Like it's definitely everything feels good. Like I need to go buy my Big 12 championship shirt soon. I don't know if
Dude,
I'll
I
get
just did.
it.
I wanted the locker room one, but they were out of my size, so I had to buy this other gray one that was pretty nice.
Oh,
But
did you order it?
I got it through Fanatics. It's still like it says Big 12 or conference champs with
Yeah.
the Big 12 and stuff. So it's still a nice shirt,
I
but
think I'm going to go to the ASU bookstore tomorrow.
oh, do they have them in there?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that. Well, I know that the Cactus Sports Place does.
Okay. I wanted
That
to
guy
get
has
like the
all sorts.
official one. I wasn't sure where
Yeah,
the
no,
official ones were.
I do want the official, and I've seen that one online. It's not even the best shirt, honestly, but like that's
No.
just kind of the one I want, like
Yeah.
it's
No, I
it
get it.
feels the
I
most.
wanted it too. The gray one was nice. I settled for a gray one, so
Hey, you
but
know what?
I bought it like immediately after.
Yeah, and again, it's like what you mentioned, like, oh, we're talking. Oh, I didn't get the preferred Big 12 championship shirt, but I want it. It's like
Champagne
it's like,
problems.
oh my gosh, like this is. It's like, oh, we didn't go to the college football playoff bye game that we preferred. We only went to the other one. It's like
You know what's going to be even sweeter is a Peach Bowl champions shirt.
that would be awesome. That would be so awesome, man. Oh my god! And it's somewhat realistic.
It's not impossible.
The one thing that would be crazy if they do keep on playing like after the Peach Bowl, it's like, oh, all of a sudden Tyson's collarbone is healed. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, the longer they go.
If you bring back Tyson, it was funny. Dillingham did say till the end of the year. So like, hey, maybe
We're in January, or
maybe
we
be
will
ready to
be
go
in
on January
January.
1st. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think that he meant it like that.
No, that would be like you got to play. You would have to play until like March. Collarbones take a while. But
They do. Yeah, I guess
what
you're
was I
right.
going to say? I had a point and I completely forgot what I was going to say.
There.
Can you imagine how crazy the storylines would be if ASU plays Oregon with the Dillingham, Lanning, and then last year's
Oh
game
yeah,
where they won 50 to whatever it was, and like that the narratives around that game would be absurd.
it would be a lot, honestly. It
Yeah,
would be so much. Uh, yeah, no, like it's a good place to be. So I think we've kind of previewed whichever game we play. I do want to touch on ASU basketball. Tough
yeah,
game this weekend.
belt to ass in that one.
Yeah. It's tough because ASU clearly didn't play that well in that game, and Sinan had probably his worst game. But Florida is also really good.
Yeah,
Like you could tell watching that game, like that wasn't just ASU playing bad. There was like 2 or 3 times, or maybe 3 or 4, like when Florida guards were just like hitting contested threes with Quaintance like all over them. It's like, well, if these guys are just draining contested threes from Quaintance, like that's tough to counter, you know. And
yeah,
Florida
for sure.
just moved 11-0. They beat UNC, so
I think you said it. I think it was you who tweeted it when you said that they did enough in their non-con to kind
yeah.
of buffer this loss, right? They didn't have any ugly losses. I guess
Nope.
it depends on how you define ugly, but I guess I'm talking by like losing to a team you shouldn't have lost to, right?
Yeah.
Like
No,
they kind of took care of business in their non-con
they
slate.
did.
So
And it wasn't always
um,
pretty. Like
no,
beating Cal Poly by 4 points isn't pretty, you know, the Idaho State game, but that's why those games are so important to win. So you just don't have to think about it for the rest of the season. It's like, oh, okay, that was an ugly win, but we won, you know.
for sure. And now we get to see what they look like in a Big 12 slate. And we've been
Yeah.
talking about that all off season. Is what are they going to look like in the new look Big 12? Where will they settle in?
Yeah,
And
it'll
I
be
guess
tough to have Eric on again. I think we'll have to have him on after ASU football season is done because like it's going to be tough to focus on.
yeah.
on
No, once the
yeah.
football season settles down, we should get him back in the mix.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe after a couple Big 12 games, we kind of have something to
Yeah.
discuss with him, you know.
Yeah.
But that guy was awesome. I think he'd be a great guest.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean that was a bad game. I mean the guy Clayton they have on their team is just a dead eye shooter. That guy that Australian dude they had was just a freaking menace. And they had that guy Elijah Martin. I was like, oh, that's right, he was on the Florida Atlantic Final Four team from a few years ago. So like they had some dudes
Oh
on that
yeah,
team, and it wasn't ASU's night. So no, exactly like you mentioned. That's why we made such a big deal of beating GCU and beating St. Mary's and New Mexico and Santa Clara. Like, even though those wins aren't not all of them are extremely sexy, they're important, and they just set a really high floor for this off. I'm sorry, not off season, non-conference for ASU. And they have one more game. They play UMass in Springfield,
oh
Massachusetts.
that's right. I forgot about UMass. Okay,
It's like the Basketball Hall of Fame series or something. And it's good. Part of me is kind of glad. Like, I'm not glad that they lost this game, but like they will not go into this UMass game like overlooking them or whatever. Like,
right.
I think they'll be ready to go and kind of close out the non-con with a good result. So, anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up?
Not really, man. Good discussion. The next couple weeks are gonna go by real slow. I'm gonna really immerse myself in the Eagles' push for the 1 seed, and then
Hey,
shift.
I hope the Seahawks help you guys out with that on Sunday. I'll be at the Seahawks Vikings game.
Oh, that would be
Hopefully they
that
don't
would be beautiful.
speaking of not repeating another awful performance, the Seahawks better not play like they did on Sunday night against the Packers. That was ugly.
Hey, and Howell we trust.
No. Hey, Gino is actually. It seems like he's going to play. So.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good.
No, the injury. I think Gino actually probably could have played, if in that game if they really had to, but it just got away from them
Yeah.
with Howell, and it's like let's just.
Is that game in Minnesota or Seattle?
It's in Seattle. Yeah, it's
Oh,
last home
big.
game here. So
That's big.
Minnesota's
Yeah,
tough,
I
but
need that.
I think that their offense is a little shaky. So
If
hope to win a
Minnesota
rough
can
game.
drop one and then beat Detroit, Eagles are the
Well,
one.
I feel like Detroit's definitely going to lose again at some point this year. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
they
they're decimated.
I know from your perspective is like getting the 1 seed. This is a good thing, but like just for the league in general, it sucks. Just all these injuries that Detroit has suffered. It's almost.
Hey Marcus, I don't prey on injuries. Okay, it is. I wanted to beat them at full strength, and now we won't get to.
No, you won't. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll probably sometime after Christmas if we're being realistic in terms of our next show, right?
Yeah, probably.
It's going to be. I have so much stuff because I go back home.
No, yeah, you just let me know
Friday
when.
night. So Saturday it'll be watching the games. And Sunday,
is the game Saturday or Sunday?
The game's on Saturday. I think it's the middle game of Saturday because Indiana and Notre Dame.
And you're going.
Well, Oh, you mean the Peach Bowl? I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on. I don't know what day June 1st is or January 1st is in terms of like day of the week. So.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, you know what? It's like a Wednesday.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so maybe we record on like a.
Yeah, just record on like the 27th or something. Well, yeah, maybe the 30th. One of the like.
Hey, you just have your people call my people. We'll work it out.
Okay, yeah, you're like Russell Wilson.
Similar athletic abilities and muscle build
and personalities. All right.
Yeah, Mr. Unlimited. That's me.
That's right. That's ASU football this year somehow. So
there you
it
go.
all ties together. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Follow the College Huddle podcast network. You know, if we should maybe have one of our partner shows on.
The Texas show.
I don't even. Yeah, I'll need to check. I'm pretty sure Clemson has a show. I don't know if Texas does, but potentially we'll have another guest on this show. So that would be fun. But the College Huddle does great work. Big 12 Huddles had a lot of interesting stuff, including stuff about ASU. So I recommend you check them out. Again, please like and subscribe, rate and review. And as always, go Sun Devils. Feeling peachy.